Good afternoon, everybody. Before we start, there is a silent killer that is lurking in your homes right now, even maybe in this place. That silent killer is invisible. It has no smell, it has no color. You cannot know it's there, but it's deadly. And something problematic is that most of the people in Japan have never heard about this silent killer. That silent killer is radon. Radon is a radioactive gas that emerges from the ground. Okay? It is part of the decomposition of uranium, but the important part is just something is natural. It's a radioactive gas. The problem with this gas is that it comes out and gets into the buildings. It starts accumulating there, and it might reach very hazardous levels. It actually starts concentrating there. And there is no way for us to know. There is no smell, no color. Something important to clarify is that radon can accumulate in one home and maybe not in the other. It depends on the characteristics of the soil. Then why should we care about this silent killer? First of all, radon. Many people don't know about this in Japan, but radon is the #1 cause of lung cancer in the world among non-smokers. So that's a pretty important factor to keep in consideration. It's the #1 cause of lung cancer in the world for non-smokers. For smokers, it's the #2. If you live in your house or you work in an office with high levels of radon, then that's equivalent to having many, like hundreds of X-rays in your chest every year. So it's that level of risk that we are dealing with. And for smokers, the risk is even higher. If you are a smoker and you live in a house with high concentrations of radon, then the levels increase like 25 times. And this is particularly important here in Japan, that we have a population of smokers so large. So how can we measure this gas, this radon? How do we catch it? There are several ways. There are long-term detectors, long-term monitors that we can use for more than 90 days, like this, exactly the same like that. It's a small device. We place it in houses, in a house, in the walls. And we leave it in there for 90 days to 1 year. This gives us a very accurate reading of the levels of radon in a house or in an office. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is we have real-time monitors. Give us the reading of radon in real time, but very short readings. Like this. This device that I started at the beginning of this presentation is going to tell us if there is radon in here. Okay, so at the end of the presentation, we will see. But of course, this real-time monitor just gives us like a picture. It's a very limited amount of time. It's going to be just like 12 minutes of reading in here versus the previous one that I show you that can go for long terms, up to a year. So this is important because these devices is going to give us the concentration of radon that we have in our houses, in our offices. And some important term here is called action level. There is no safe level of radon, but there is something called action level. The moment that the concentration goes above that action level, we have to do something in that building. We have to do something called mitigation. So actually the building has to be fixed. We should not keep living in that house. The house with concentrations above action level have to be fixed. Well, we call it mitigation. Let me tell you a real case that we had here in Japan. In Yokosuka, in Kanagawa-ken, in Kanagawa Prefecture, we measured levels of radon that were really high, 800 becquerels per cubic meter. That's 8 times higher than the action levels recommended by the World Health Organization. This is the way we measure radon. That is the unit, becquerels per cubic meter. Becquerels is the unit of a radioactive decay. So we're talking about radioactivity here per cubic meter of air. So basically, there was a family in Yokosuka living in a house that have incredibly high levels of radon. They didn't know. There is no symptoms. Real case scenario here. The family had no clue. We just went to measure. They didn't know. They didn't even know what radon actually was. So in that case, we have to mitigate, as I told you before. When we are above the action level, something has to be done, and that's an actual picture of the mitigation that took place in that house. That's one of our workers installing a fan that is going to get under the house and suck all the air. It's like a vacuum cleaner under the house. Trying to prevent the radon from getting into the house is just being sucked out because of that fan. So that's the real mitigation that we perform in that home. And they are safer now. They're not, the levels didn't go to zero, but they are way safer right now. But the question that we have is, imagine how many other similar cases we have in Japan, where the people is living in similar circumstances and they don't even know. A little bit about me, because maybe you are listening to all this and you say, well, who is this person talking to us about radon? So, as it was mentioned during the introduction, I graduated from Hokkaido University in the year 2011, say almost 14 years ago, with a doctor degree in geoenvironmental engineering. That's my main background. And also, I have 2 certifications. One is for radon measurement, and the other is for radon mitigation. These certifications are awarded by an organization in the United States called the National Radon Proficiency Program. Okay, so in order to do all this radon-related work, we have to be certified. And since the year 2019, I have been working in chasing this silent killer, this radon. Okay, so since 2019, we have been measuring levels of radon in offices, in houses, all over Japan. But a special detail here in US military bases. This is the Japan, the country of Japan, the soil of Japan, but it's done inside of US military bases. So the question that we have to answer now is, well, you are measuring radon in Japan. How much radon do we really have here? Well, the results are these. Not just by us, but some other companies also. In total, about 1,000 homes are measured inside of US military bases every year in Japan, right? So about 1,000 every year, and 300 to 400 houses in average are above the action level. Not that that's the houses where we found radon. No, we found radon in way many more. These are just the houses where the levels were above the action level. They are so high that we have to do something to mitigate that. So 30 to 40% of all the houses measured have levels above the action level. So that's pretty high. And we can see here that this is a recurring pattern. So we can see that there is high levels of radon all over Japan year after year. This is what the data is showing us. I want to talk about two main myths that we have in Japan outside of the military bases. There are like two main myths that I want to talk about. First of all, outside of the military bases is basically unknown. I guess most of the people in this room right now, this is the first time that you hear about radon. And unfortunately, the awareness is almost zero. What by that, we are basically giving free room to radon to do anything it wants, right? Where there's like a blind spot that we have in there. So the myth that I want to talk about, two myths that I see consistently in Japan. One is that, and by the way, I was talking with somebody just before this presentation, and they told me this. Yeah, there is people who think that radon is actually good for health. Say, radon, that's good. Well, they say that the first myth is that radon is good for health, and there are even a mascot. This is a real mascot. It's a real picture of a mascot promoting radon as something healthy in the onsens. And if you get in the websites for those places, they basically advertise large amounts of radon. Come to our onsens because we have a lot of radon that is good for you. Well, I want to compare this myth versus this second myth. Another myth that I see sometimes is the people say there is no radon in Japan. We have heard that. I have heard that many times. No, radon is a problem from another countries. It's not from Japan. We basically don't have any radon in here. So the myth one and the myth two contradict each other. So do we even have radon a lot, like the onsens are advertising, or we don't? You see, we basically cannot have it both ways. Myth one goes against myth two. And based on what the data tell us, is basically there is a lot of radon in Japan. We have found it. The onsens have it. They know they have it. They are promoting that. They are telling us there's a large amounts of radon in those places. So basically what I want to say here is, yes, the myth two, that's not the case. So we actually have a lot of radon, and of course radon is not good for you. The reason we're making this speech right now is because we realize that the world do take action against radon, but we don't see that happening here in Japan. The World Health Organization says this verbatim: there is no safe level for radon exposure. They recommend an action level, remember we saw action level, to be 100 becquerels per cubic meter. There is no safe level, but when you are above 100 becquerels per cubic meter, you have to take action. That's what they recommend. The United States has a little bit more permissive level, 150 becquerels per cubic meter. So the reason I'm here talking to you is like why in Japan we don't have still a national standard. There should be a discussion about this. We should have in Japan also action levels. We have to have awareness about this. So what I'm here to tell you is that Japan needs to have its own radon experts. We are here suggesting the creation of something that we would like to call the Japan Association of Radon Scientists and Technologies. Japan needs to have this association. And the objectives are going to be, first of all, raise awareness. And by raising, I mean bringing it from zero, basically, to start making everybody aware of the risk of radon. Then we would like to, this association to create the standards to measure radon in Japan and to mitigate it. This association will also be in charge of training local professionals. We need to have professionals in Japan all throughout that they know how to measure and how to mitigate based on our own culture and our own characteristics in here. And of course, the objective of protecting families throughout all Japan. So radon is a silent killer, but the good news is it's not unstoppable. We can do something to protect us against this. That's something that this association with the Japan Association of Radon Scientists and Technologies, we can actually defeat the risk of radon. That way we can make Japan radon safe. So let's see. In this moment, the reading is 0, which is pretty good. So if the machine hasn't detected any levels of radon in this room, next step would be to have a long-term testing. But at least we know that information. We know that while we were here, we were not exposed to radon. Let's start the process of measuring all over Japan. Thank you very much for your attention.